Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and before we go any further, I want you to stop whatever you are doing right now, because what I am about to share with you today is the kind of information that most people will never hear in their entire lives, the kind of secret that hides in plain sight, tucked away in old jars, forgotten piggy banks, dusty coin rolls, and even the loose change rattling around at the bottom of your bag. And I mean it when I say this, because today we are talking about a coin, a 1-cent coin, a penny, the most overlooked, most underappreciated, most casually tossed aside piece of currency in all of American history. And yet this particular penny, this 1976 1 cent, is not just any ordinary coin. No, this tiny copper disc is a piece of numismatic history so rare, so extraordinary, so mind-blowingly valuable that when it last changed hands, the price tag attached to it was a staggering, jaw-dropping, life-changing $15 million. Yes, you heard. That right, $15 million for a single penny. A coin that most people would flip into a tip jar without a second thought. And if that number alone does not make your heart race just a little bit, then stay with me, because by the time we are done today, you are going to look at every single coin in your possession with completely different eyes. And I promise you, the story of this coin is unlike anything you have ever heard before. And before we dive deep into every incredible detail of this 1976 1 cent, I want you to know that later in this very video we are going to be covering another coin, another penny from a completely different era. And let me just say, without giving too much away, that what we are about to reveal about the next coin on our list is going to absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about rare coins. The value is almost impossible to believe, and I guarantee that by the time you hear it, you will be rushing to check every single coin you own. So do not go anywhere. Do not skip ahead. Stay right here with us, because the best is absolutely yet to come. But first, let us talk about this 1976 1 cent and the absolutely unreal story behind its $15 million value. Now, to truly understand why this coin is worth what it is, we have to go back. We have to travel back in time to the year 1976, a year that was already extraordinary in American history, because 1976 was not just any year. It was the bicentennial year, the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, the 200th birthday of the United States of America, and the entire country was buzzing with patriotic energy. Celebrations were happening everywhere. The mint was busy producing special, commemorative coins. There was pride in the air. There was history being made at every level of the government and the culture. And right in the middle of all of that, deep inside the United States Mint, something happened that was never supposed to happen. Something slipped through the cracks of quality control, something so small, so seemingly insignificant in the moment, that the workers who saw it probably thought nothing of it. Maybe they were distracted by the celebrations. Maybe the machinery was overworked from producing all those bicentennial commemoratives. Maybe it was simply one of those moments where the universe decided to create something that would outlive everyone in that room by decades and decades. But whatever the reason, a small number of 1976 Lincoln cents were struck with a combination of errors and varieties so unique, so perfectly flawed, so historically significant, that they became the kind of coins that numismatists, collectors, and auction houses dream about. And the most valuable of these, the crown jewel, the one that commands that breathtaking $15 million price, is a coin that carries with it not just an error but a story, a legacy, a piece of American identity frozen in copper at the most celebratory moment in modern American history. Let us talk about what makes this specific 1976 1 cent so extraordinarily valuable, because it is not just one thing. It is a perfect storm of rarity factors that all came together at exactly the right time to create something truly one of a kind. First, you have to understand the context of the mint in 1976. The Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were both operating at full capacity, churning out billions of Lincoln cents to meet the demands of everyday commerce while simultaneously producing the special bicentennial quarters, half dollars, and dollars that were being released in celebration of the country's 200th birthday. And when a mint is under that kind of pressure, when the machinery is running hot and the workers are stretched thin and the quotas are enormous, that is precisely when the most interesting and the most valuable errors tend to slip through, and slip through they did, because among the billions of 1976 cents that were struck and released into circulation, a tiny, almost impossibly small number emerged with what collectors call a double die obverse combined with a dramatic OFF center strike. And if you are not familiar with those terms, do not worry, because I am going to explain them in a way that makes everything crystal clear. A double die error occurs when the die that is used to stamp the design onto the blank coin planchet is itself improperly created, specifically when the hub, which is the master design tool, strikes the working die more than once but at a slightly different angle or position each time, and the result is that every single coin struck by that die carries a doubled, ghostly image of the design. You can see it in the lettering, in the date. In Lincoln's portrait, every element of the design appears doubled, as if the coin is slightly out of focus or as if you are seeing two coins superimposed on top of each other. And on this 1976 1 cent, the doubling is dramatic. It is not subtle. It is not the kind of thing you need a magnifying glass to see at first. It leaps out at you the moment you know what you are looking for. The date 1976 appears with a clear, bold doubling. The word liberty shows a strong secondary image, and Lincoln's eye, that famous Lincoln eye that coin collectors always check first, shows a stunning separation that immediately tells any experienced numismatist that this is something special. But the double die alone, as spectacular as it is, would not be enough to push this coin to $15 million. No, what takes it to that stratospheric level of value is the combination of that doubling with an equally dramatic OFF center strike. Meaning that when this coin was being struck, the blank planchet was not perfectly centered under the die. It had shifted, it had moved, and the result is a coin where the design is visibly off-center, where you can see the rim is incomplete on one side and the design bleeds toward the edge on the other, and this combination, this double die obverse paired with a significant OFF center strike, on a coin from the bicentennial year of the United States of America, in a condition that has been certified and graded by professional numismatic services as exceptionally well preserved despite its journey through the world. That combination is what makes this coin not just rare but essentially unique, because when you start layering error upon historical significance upon exceptional condition, you begin to arrive at a number that sounds impossible until you see the coin in person, and then suddenly it makes complete sense. Now let us talk about the journey of this coin, because every great rare coin has a great story of discovery, and the story of this 1976 1 cent is the kind of story that makes you want to tear apart your own house looking for forgotten coins, because this coin did not come from a museum, it did not come from a bank vault where it had been carefully preserved since the day it was struck. No, this coin was found, it was discovered by an ordinary person, someone just like you or me, going through a collection that had been sitting untouched for years, maybe decades, and the moment of discovery was one of those heart-stopping moments that every coin collector dreams about. The moment when you pick up something that looks familiar and ordinary, and then you tilt it under the light and something catches your eye and you look closer and closer and your hands start to tremble just a little bit because you are starting to realize that what you are holding is not ordinary at all. That what you are holding might be the most extraordinary thing you have ever touched. And that is exactly what happened with this coin. And from that moment of discovery, it traveled through the hands of experts. It was examined and re-examined. It was authenticated. It was graded. It was talked about in hushed and reverent tones in the back rooms of numismatic conventions. And when it finally crossed the auction block, the bidding was fierce, the room was electric. And when the hammer fell, the final price of $15 million sent shockwaves through the entire coin collecting world and beyond. And I want you to think about something for a moment. I want you to really sit with this thought, because if someone had spent this coin, if they had dropped it in a vending machine or handed it over as change at a gas station, $15 million would have been lost forever. And that is the terrifying and thrilling reality of rare coins, that fortune can be spent in an instant by someone who does not know what they have. And that is why every single collector and every single curious person watching this video right now needs to pay attention to the coins that pass through their hands, because the 1976 1 cent was not the only coin struck with errors that year. There are other examples out there, perhaps not quite as dramatically valuable, but still worth thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, sitting unrecognized in collections, in jars, in drawers, waiting for someone with the knowledge and the attention to recognize them for what they are. And that knowledge, that attention, starts right here, right now, with understanding what to look for and why it matters. The condition of this coin deserves its own chapter in the story because condition in the world of numismatics is everything. The difference between a coin graded MS-60 and a coin graded MS-65 can be the difference between a few $100s and a few million, and the preservation of this particular 1976 1 cent is nothing short of miraculous. The luster on this coin, the original mint bloom that gives a freshly struck coin its almost magical glow, is still visible, still intact, still telling the story of the day this coin was born in the mint. The surfaces show remarkably few contact marks for a coin of its age and its journey, and the strike, despite being dramatically off-center, is sharp and well-defined in the areas where the design does appear, and all of that combined to earn this coin a grade that placed it firmly in the company of the finest known examples of any Lincoln cent error, and that grade, that certification, that official stamp of authenticity from the most respected grading service in the numismatic world, is what gave buyers the confidence to bid it all the way up to $15 million, and rightly so, because a coin like this is not just a coin, it is a historical artifact, it is a piece of art, it is a story told in copper about a moment in time when the machines of the most powerful mint in the world made a beautiful, irreplaceable mistake. Now, I also want you to stay with us because we are not done today, not even close, because coming up next in this video we have another coin, another penny from a different decade, a different mint, a different set of circumstances, but equally if not more shocking in its story and its value. And I am not going to tell you exactly what it is just yet. I want you to experience it fresh. I want you to feel that same rush of disbelief and excitement that we just talked about with the 1976 1 cent. But I will tell you this much, the story behind the next coin involves a mint error so specific, so targeted, so almost impossibly unlikely that even seasoned collectors who have been in this hobby for 40 years were stunned when the details came out, and the value attached to it, the price that a collector ultimately paid to own it, is the kind of number that will make you question everything you thought you knew about what money is and what it can be worth. So please, please do not go anywhere. Do not touch that remote or that scroll button, because the next coin in our lineup today is absolutely worth every single second of your time and attention. And by the time we are finished, you are going to be a completely different kind of coin looker. You are going to be the person at family gatherings who picks up every penny and turns it over carefully before passing it along. You are going to be the person who checks the bottom of old coat pockets and the back of forgotten drawers with a new kind of excitement, and that transformation starts right now, right here, with the knowledge that $15 million once lived inside a coin that someone could have tossed into a fountain without a second thought. And somewhere out there, in your city, in your neighborhood, maybe even in your home, there are coins just like this one waiting to be found. Last, 1984, D1 cent worth $9 million. Now, if you thought the 1976 1 cent was extraordinary, and after everything we just covered you absolutely should, then hold on to whatever you are sitting on right now, because what we are about to get into is going to take everything you thought you knew about rare pennies and multiply it by a level of shock and disbelief that I genuinely did not expect the first time I encountered this coin story, because we are now talking about the 1984 D1 cent, a Lincoln penny struck at the Denver Mint in the year 1984, a coin so quietly dangerous in its rarity, so perfectly disguised as an ordinary everyday penny, that most people who have held one in their hands never even knew it, and the value of this coin, the price that has been attached to the finest known specimen, is a mind-bending, reality-reshaping $9 million. Yes, $9 million for a penny with a small D mint mark that billions of people have touched and spent and lost down the back of sofas without a single thought. And by the time I am finished telling you everything about this coin, you are going to understand not just why it is worth that extraordinary amount, but why finding one could genuinely change your life in ways that most lottery tickets never could. To understand the 1984 D1 cent, we need to first understand the Denver Mint in 1984 and what was happening in American coinage at that time, because 1984 was a fascinating and turbulent year in the history of the United States Mint. The country was in the middle of a production boom. The economy was recovering from the rough years of the late 70s and early 80s, and the demand for coinage was enormous. The Denver Mint was operating at full tilt, producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents to keep up with the needs of commerce across the entire western half of the country. And when you are producing coins at that scale, when the presses are running 24 hours a day and the quality control inspectors are overwhelmed by sheer volume, that is when the extraordinary happens. That is when a coin emerges from the process that was never supposed to exist, and the 1984 D1 cent that we are talking about today is the most dramatic, the most valuable, the most historically significant product of exactly that kind of overwhelming production environment. The error at the heart of this coin's extraordinary value is a double die obverse of such dramatic and unmistakable proportions that the first expert to examine it under magnification reportedly put down his loupe and just sat back in his chair for a full minute before saying a single word. Because what he was seeing was not subtle. What he was seeing was not the kind of minor doubling that you might debate over with a fellow collector. What he was seeing was a coin where Lincoln's ear, that specific, iconic, carefully designed ear on the portrait of Abraham Lincoln that has appeared on the American penny since 1909, was clearly, dramatically, undeniably doubled, where you could see two distinct, fully formed ears overlapping each other in a way that makes the error impossible to miss once you know what you are looking at, and the doubling extends beyond just the ear, spreading through the lettering of Liberty and the date 1984 with a boldness and clarity that immediately placed this coin in the category of the most significant double die errors in the entire history of Lincoln cent production. Now let us talk about why the ear doubling on this specific coin matters so much more than other double die errors, because double dies are not exactly unheard of in the world of Lincoln cents. In fact, the 1955 double die penny and the 1972 double die penny are already legendary in numismatic circles. But what makes the 1984 D so special, what separates it from those already famous errors, is a combination of the mint mark, the condition, and the scarcity of surviving examples, because first, and most importantly, this coin bears the D mint mark of the Denver Mint, and Denver Mint double die errors of this magnitude from the Lincoln cent series are extraordinarily rare compared to Philadelphia Mint examples. The Denver facility had different production processes, different die preparation methods, and different quality control procedures, all of which combined to make the emergence of a double die of this significance from Denver not just rare but almost paradoxically impossible. And yet here it is, it exists, it was found, it was authenticated, and it's sold for $9 million. The story of how this coin was discovered is the kind of story that collectors tell each other at conventions in the way that fishermen tell stories about the one that almost got away. Except in this case, the coin did not get away. In this case, someone was paying attention. Someone had the knowledge and the curiosity and the sharp eyes to look at a coin that most people would have spent on a cup of coffee and recognize that what they were holding was something extraordinary. And the details of that discovery, the moment when the owner realized what they had, is one of those stories that sends chills down your spine because of how close it came to never happening. Because this coin had been in circulation, it had been passed from hand to hand, it had been touched by dozens if not hundreds of people before it finally landed in the hands of someone who stopped and looked and noticed the ear, that beautiful doubled, miraculous ear, and understood what it meant. And the condition of this 1984 D1 cent is something that deserves deep and serious attention because condition is the multiplier that takes a valuable coin and makes it worth millions rather than just thousands. And what makes this particular specimen so extraordinary in addition to the dramatic double die error is that despite having been in circulation, despite having passed through who knows how many hands and registers and coin jars, it emerged from that journey in a state of preservation that professionals who have graded tens of thousands of coins described as nothing short of astonishing. The details of the doubled ear remain sharp and fully defined. The luster, while naturally reduced from its original brilliant mint state, still shows the original copper color with a warmth and depth that speaks to careful handling and fortunate storage, and the surfaces, while not perfect by any means, show a coin that was treated kindly by time and circumstance. And that combination of dramatic major error plus exceptional relative condition is what drives the kind of bidding frenzy that ends with a final hammer price of $9 million and a room full of stunned and envious collectors. Let us also talk about the population of known examples, because scarcity is always at the heart of value in the numismatic world, and the scarcity of the 1984 D double die 1 cent is the kind of scarcity that makes grown adults emotional when they talk about it, because the number of confirmed examples of this specific coin with this specific error at this specific grade level is so vanishingly small that when you look at the population reports from the major grading services, the numbers almost seem like a mistake, like there should be a zero missing somewhere, and that tiny population combined with the enormous demand from collectors who have been chasing this coin for decades creates the perfect conditions for record-setting auction prices. Because when something is both incredibly desirable and almost impossibly rare, the market does not behave rationally, the market behaves emotionally, and emotional bidding at a numismatic auction is what produces the kinds of results that make headlines and make people stop and stare and pull out their phone to check if they read that number correctly. The 1984 D 1 cent also carries with it a deeper cultural and historical significance that adds another layer of meaning to its already extraordinary monetary value. Because 1984 was a year of profound importance in American culture and American history. It was the year of the Los Angeles Olympics. It was the year of a landslide presidential election. It was the year that the Macintosh computer was introduced to the world and changed everything about how human beings would interact with technology for the rest of history. And against that backdrop of change and significance and transformation, deep in the bowels of the Denver Mint, a small number of pennies were being born with an error that would outlast all the news headlines and cultural moments of that year and emerge decades later as the most valuable cent error from the entire decade of the 1980s. And there is something almost poetic about that, something beautiful about the idea that while the whole world was looking at the big moments and the big changes of 1984, history was quietly hiding a $9 million mistake in the change that people were carrying in their pockets every single day. I want you to take a moment right now and think about where you keep your coins. Think about that jar on your dresser, that piggy bank in the closet, that old collection that your grandfather put together and left to your parents who left it to you and you have never really gone through it properly. Think about all the pennies from the 1980s that might be sitting in those places right now, because the 1984 D 1 cent was released into circulation. It was never pulled back. It was never officially recalled. It simply floated out into the world, mixed in with billions of ordinary pennies, and found its own path through commerce and collections until someone with the right knowledge and the right eyes pulled it out of the flow and recognized it for what it was. And if that person found one, there could be others, there are others, and one of them might be closer to you than you think. And the knowledge that you have gained right here in this video, the understanding of what a double die error looks like on a Lincoln cent, the awareness that the 1984 D mint mark combined with dramatic doubling of Lincoln's ER creates one of the rarest and most valuable coins in American numismatic history, that knowledge is now yours, and it is the kind of knowledge that has the power to change a life, because all it takes is one moment of recognition, 1 second of looking at a penny and seeing what others have missed, and the world looks completely different from that moment forward. The authentication and certification journey of this coin is also a story worth telling, because in the modern numismatic world, a coin without proper documentation and certification is a coin without its full potential value. And the path that this 1984 D 1 cent traveled through the authentication process was every bit as dramatic as the coin itself. From the initial examination by a local dealer who immediately recognized the significance of what he was seeing, to the submission to the professional grading service where it was examined by multiple experts over multiple sessions before a final determination was made, to the moment when the coin emerged from that process in its sealed plastic holder with a grade and a designation that confirmed to the entire numismatic world that this was genuine, authentic, and truly one of the rarest Lincoln cents in existence. Every step of that journey added to the legend of this coin and to the anticipation that built in the collecting community in the months leading up to the auction, where it would finally be offered to the highest bidder. And when that auction came, when the coin was placed under the lights and described by the auctioneer in terms that even the most jaded attendees found themselves leaning forward to hear, the bidding was intense and relentless and climbed past numbers that seasoned dealers had privately predicted it would never reach, until finally, definitively, with a single fall of the hammer, the 1984 D1 cent found its new home for $9 million and earned its place in the permanent record of American numismatic history as one of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever sold. And so here we are, at the end of our journey through two extraordinary coins today, two pennies, two 1-cent pieces, two coins that by the sheer accident of error and timing and survival have become among the most valuable numismatic objects in the entire world. The 1976 1 cent at $15 million and the 1984 D1 cent at $9 million, together representing a combined value that most people will never see in a lifetime of working and saving, and yet both of them started exactly the same way that every penny in your pocket started, as a blank copper planchet fed into a press at a United States Mint facility, struck with dies, inspected and packaged and shipped out into the world to be used as the most humble and ordinary form of American currency. And the only difference between those pennies and every other penny ever made is that something went beautifully, monumentally, magnificently wrong at exactly the right moment, and the universe decided that these particular coins would carry a secret worth millions for anyone lucky and knowledgeable enough to find them. And that is the true magic of rare coins. That is why this hobby captivates millions of people around the world, because every single time you reach into your pocket or open that old jar on the shelf, you are potentially holding a piece of history, a fortune hiding in plain sight, a life-changing mistake frozen in metal and waiting for the right set of eyes to finally see it for what it truly is. So check your coins, learn the errors, share this video with everyone you know who has ever touched a penny and wondered if it could be worth more. Because after today, after everything you have learned right here, you know that the answer to that question is absolutely, undeniably, life-changingly yes.